So, lads, today we are going to be talking about the Indiana Fever, and we're going to be talking about the interview from Amber Cox, their new COO and GM, about the expansion draft, about free agency, and we are going to be reacting to all of it. And I probably will be doing a big reaction to this. I'll be breaking down individual parts later on throughout the day. Before we get on to it, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We have, in fact, lost 32 subscribers. Since the moment I hit upload on my last video, we were at 4,060. I recorded them in advance yesterday. We've actually lost 32 subscribers, and we are actually on track to go below to go under 40,000 subscribers. So, if you guys don't want that to happen, subscribe. And if you guys do want that to happen, by all means, unsubscribe. If you guys do want me to go under 40k, I guess. But anyway, let's listen to this.
Let's start here with Stephanie White, head coach. She comes back to Indiana, somebody that has her roots here in this state and in many ways in this franchise.
And by the way, I've skipped through, it's like 3 minutes 20 of like very little relevant information.
Take me through your expectations for her and how this reuniting you see going on here with the Fever.
Yeah, I mean, what a cool moment for the Fever and for Stephanie White to come back to this organization. Basketball royalty in this state, has done so much as a player and a coach. You know, again, being in this league, I've long admired Steph and her ability to put a team together, to, you know, build a coaching staff, and obviously the X's and O's and everything she can do.
Put a team together? What? Like, I would be quite confused about that because she inherited Curt Miller's team. Let's be real. She inherited Curt Miller's team.
On the court, her players love to play for her. So just being able to support her in any way that I can, I truly view this as a team effort. This is not going to be one person that's going to put this together. I think between Steph and her staff, and also Kelly Krauskopf, Lynn Dunn still on board as a senior advisor, we've got a tremendous team with a very...
Lynn Dunn, like, thank God she's a senior advisor, but maybe one of the worst GMs I've ever seen. Like, she gave Erica Wheeler a max contract. She gave Katie Lou Samuelson a near max contract. She cut Celeste Taylor, who had one of the best contracts in the entire WNBA. Literally, they could have had her for 4 years for pennies. She cut Celeste Taylor for absolutely no reason. Like, I guess it's good that she's there because she's Lynn Dunn, but Lynn Dunn did a horrible job as GM. Also, she cut Emily Ensler and she cut Alana Smith as well.
Very diverse skill set that are coming at things at different angles, and I think that's going to put us in the best position to be successful.
Speaking of Kelly, she's somebody, I know you and she go way back, 20 years back. It was something she talked about in that introductory press conference. Mm-hmm. To be able to work with her, the brain power here.
Conference, you know, all it took was the phone call from Kelly Cross. Made throughout my career, I've leaned on Kelly for several seasons, and then coming back gives us an even different...
Yeah, I'm going to have to skip through some of this because as relevant as this is to Amber Cox herself, not that relevant to the actual team we're seeing on the floor.
A look at the way that we do things, and again, players, and couldn't be more excited than to come to work with Kelly every single day.
When you look at what the Fever have here in the front office, bringing Stephanie White back, more exciting moves, I'm sure, to come. You know, Pacer Sports and Entertainment has always been really invested in the Indiana Fever, but this feels like, to me, like this is another step forward, another level of investment. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of credit goes to the Simon family. Obviously, it's been 25 plus years now for the Indiana Fever. And not all of those years were easy, right? But there was always a belief, ownership, see into the success of this environment and have this entire organization pulling in the same direction.
I mean, in fairness, Herb Simon did not do the greatest job in the world for a while. But yeah, that's something anyway. But let's see, can we figure out something? Can we get her talking about the free agents?
Cool story on the side, but obviously somebody with a great basketball mind that Stephanie really has respected too in her time in Connecticut.
Yeah, Austin is a tremendous mind. I have not worked with him. I'm looking forward to getting to know him as well, but I know he brings so much experience. I've talked to other players who have played for Austin, and just to a person, they all just rave about him. Karima, as a player, was very difficult when you were on the other side, and I think she brings that same mentality. I got to know her a little bit.
We discussed the inflection point, kind of where the league is at on Friday, which I'm sure for some unique thing, right? Because it's different than anything else, probably.
Surely she has to talk with Temmie.
that you do from an offseason perspective, but does it provide assistance and help at all knowing you're going to be doing this a couple of more times and kind of going through that process for the first time this year?
You know, it was an interesting experience. And you think about this team, and obviously I was not here, but you could see, and I've heard about how close this unit was. And so it's a difficult decision, but we all have to sacrifice for expansion in order to get Golden State up and running and 2 more teams next year. So it's what we have to.
It's going to be so interesting to see who they give up in the expansion draft next year. Like they can steal 2 players from you. Not just Temi, they can literally steal 2 players.
Do. It's not easy. You never like to see a player leave. Temi was obviously an incredible piece to the success last year. But again, it's the price we pay for growth. We're really excited for Golden State to come online. And certainly it was a decision we made, but a decision that wasn't in a vacuum, part of an overall strategy that hopefully everyone will see unfold throughout the offseason.
Take me through your thoughts on the roster as things currently stand.
There we go. Thoughts on the roster. Let's go.
And you've got a few pillars, I think, at least to build around. It'll be an important free agency stretch, perhaps an important trade stretch here coming up. But where do you view this roster right now?
I mean, that getting into the playoffs was such a great step. I think experiencing that for our young team is so important because you understand how the intensity level goes up another several notches, right? So that is a really important step. So obviously we want to take the next step. So I think as we're looking to free agency, we'll think about veterans coming in with that playoff experience.
What vets are there in free agency, though? That's the problem. Like, what vet, what vets can you get that are free agents? And I mean that. Like, you are in free agency. What vet? You don't want to bring in Sloot, because Sloot's going to have to play minutes and take minutes off Caitlin Clark. Like, what vet do you want to pay, do you want to have that you can actually afford and will come to Indiana? You've got here, which you probably can't see, but you've got, like, Diana Taurasi. She won't want to come to Indiana. Natasha Howard, you don't really want Natasha Howard. She's kind of better than Alyssa Smith, I guess. Bree Jones, you can't play her with Aaliyah Boston. Alyssa Thomas isn't going to come to Indiana. You want to keep Kelsey Mitchell, obviously. Stewie's not coming to Indiana. Neka's not coming to Indiana. Dewana Bonner's not coming to Indiana. Kelsey Plum's going to be cored. Satu's going to be cored and stay. Parker Tyus, what's the point? Maisha Hines-Allen, what's the point? Mercedes Russell, what's the point? She's not even a vet. Izzy Harrison, what's the point? You're overpaying a bench player. There is literally not one vet that makes this team better unless you get someone like Tina Charles on the cheap.
But, what a foundation in Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, back-to-back rookies of the year, players playing together that can really do something special for the long term. And obviously, as we get into free agency, the number one priority for us is re-signing Kelsey Mitchell. I think that backcourt.
I mean, they obviously, they will re-sign her because they're going to core her. But obviously now, the fact that she's going to be cored is just keeping her, not being forced to trade her.
Was about as lethal as we've seen in the WNBA, and
for about 10 games. That's what people don't realize is that there was literally like a 10-game stretch, and then Kelsey Mitchell started going dribble, step back long twos for a while.
Talking maybe in history in the second half of the season last year. So we want to reunite Caitlin and Kelsey, and Kelsey, when I think about her and her time in Indiana and, a lot of trials and tribulations throughout her career. So for me and for us, I'm most excited for her to be in this moment and experience so much success. Yes, we'll continue to look at the roster, see what's available to us as we get into free agency, and to continue to try to, build upon last year's success.
Caitlin specifically has such a unique skill set. She loves to run, just incredible vision. Stephanie White sat down right where you are and said, we want to run. So how much are you thinking about?
Like, why would they protect Damaris Dantas if they want to run? It doesn't make any sense. Like, Dantas is a good player. She can't move.
The fit here as you close in on free agency.
It's the most important thing, right? You've got to get the players that fit with the system Stephanie wants to have on the floor. Offensively, we were pretty efficient last year. We need to improve on the defensive end, which I'm sure Steph agrees with. So we'll continue to look at those, 3-and-D type players that can get out and run.
They don't exist. There's not one of that. That player does not exist in free agency. The 3-and-D player, again, that player does not exist in free agency. I'm not joking when I say this. Chechi Zandalasini, she's gone to Golden State. She's a restricted free agent. Okay, you can't get Zandalasini. You're not going to get Onion Murray off Chicago. What other 3-and-D players are there? I'm not joking when I say this. They don't exist. You're going to bring in old Sammy Wickham? You're going to bring in old Alicia Clark? That player does not simply exist unless you go overseas.
But can also get back and help us on the defensive end, really improve on that side of the ball too.
That player
But
doesn't exist.
fit is the most important thing. You got to have somebody that can run up and down the floor and catch those passes Caitlin's going to be throwing.
Speaking of the defensive end, improvements to be made, but you've got a centerpiece in the middle there in Aaliyah Boston. And when you think about defensively, what she provides as you look to build on that end of the floor, how significant is having her down there?
I mean, so significant. And I told her this when I met her and we sat down the first time. I am such an Aaliyah Boston fan since her days in college, and just to watch her growth year over year, even, as a season progresses, has been tremendous.
Last year, in fairness, Aaliyah Boston didn't show up in game sharpness. I don't know whether it was a lack of cardio issue or whether it was just she didn't play at all and she looked kind of shell-shocked. She looked more shell-shocked than Caitlin Clark through the first 10 games. And at the same time, like by the end of the season, she was killing it.
So as good as she was defensively, as good as she became in that screen and roll system offensively last year, I think we're going to see even another level from Aaliyah Boston next year. And I'm really excited to have her anchoring everything we do on the defensive end.
Coming weeks, what do the next few weeks, maybe month plus, look like for you as you continue to get to work here?
Yeah, I mean, we'll fill out the rest of the coaching staff. That's top priority. We want to really have our basketball staff in place as we hit free agency. That kicks in January, and that's where our focus will be, obviously.
They need to get an overseas scout, and I mean that. And I mean that, like, immediately. Like, that is the one thing. The players that the Indiana Fever are saying they need to get do not exist in WNBA free agency, and you've got one first-round draft pick. You can't draft Anissa Morrow and Sonia Citron with the 8th pick. Sonia Citron could go as high as, like, 3. Like, there's a possibility she's gone before 8. Like, you can't draft both of them. Like, it's not possible. Like, these players don't exist in the WNBA, these 3-and-D athletes who can run up and down the floor, because the UConn system and the South Carolina system and the Kim Mulkey system doesn't make players play outside their comfort zone. And those players they just play to their strengths. They don't develop their games. Unfortunately, most of the WNBA have come from those type of systems. So you're not going to find find a modern player who played in a prehistoric college system. So you're going to have to either look overseas or try to trade for more draft picks, because those players that that Amber Cox is talking about getting do not exist in free agency in the WNBA, because of how much the likes of Dawn Staley, Gina Oriema, and Kim Mulkey have, I'm not going to say harmed, because their job is to win at college, but how bad a job they've done as developing players, especially modern players.
Obviously, we're getting out, we're scouting a lot of the college games that are going on, looking at players internationally. So
Thank you looking at players internationally, but you gotta go more. You need to hire, literally, you have the amount of money, pay someone $100K a year, and their job is to scout. Their job is to scout overseas. Their job is to go everywhere around Europe and just look for players, see who's doing well, see who fits a role. Because some players that can play a system, especially if you've got Stephanie White, if you want to play a system where kind of bigs need the ball in their hands a little bit, someone that can play the high-low with Aaliyah Boston and shoot the 3 ball and kind of move as well. Someone like a Damaris Dantas type player that can move, like, they exist overseas.
Everybody's got their hands in a little bit of it right now, just making sure we're covering all the bases and putting ourselves in a position to have the most information possible to make the best decisions when the time comes.
Amber, you've got a Fever fan base here that is just so eager for any bit of content, any bit of Fever news. So you sitting down with us is much appreciated. What's your message to this fan base here as you get your work underway and as this offseason continues?
I mean, just keep supporting, keep coming out. I mean, it was incredible to see Gainbridge Fieldhouse packed every single night, and frankly on the road as well. Fever fans are not isolated to just Indiana, as we learned. They are all over this country packing arenas. So just keep coming out, keep supporting. It's a really important piece and creates that home court.
So yeah, that is pretty much it. That is the Amber Cox interview. And I was surprised she didn't say anything, unless I missed it, about Temi Fagbenle. But obviously, I might have missed that part. Either way, though, the fact that they're looking overseas is important, because they really, really do. Like, the players that Amber Cox is talking about do not exist in the W. They exist in college and they exist overseas. So they really got to scout that. And free agency, you've really got to push for in one of those two directions, because the WNBA free agency pool this year is not only not good, there's not a single player outside of like a Neka Wumake or a Stewie or an Alyssa Thomas that would fit, and they're obviously not going to come. But anyway, I'll see you guys.